now, more views and opinions now on the big story Britain is talking about today.
Nick Ferrari and Vanessa Feltz are here, and obviously the Matt Hancock story isn't going anywhere fast. So the CCTV footage is under investigation. Who leaked it? Why didn't he know the camera was there? Did he know the camera was there? Interesting, the plot thickens today. Whilst we've been on air, the new Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, has revealed that the camera in question has been disabled by the department. He followed, I don't think as a general rule there should be cameras in the Secretary of State's office. So he's walked in, looked up and gone, that'll come down for a start.
Talk about stable door and horses bolted, though.
Yes.
Bit late now to take the camera down, isn't it? Blimey.
So that's one of the issues. I mean, there are a great many issues here, obviously, but on this one particular issue here, the fact that there was a camera in the office pointing at the door, and should it have been there, and shouldn't you be able to trust the information in a closed government office?
Don't know. I think this conversation about the camera, should it be there, shouldn't it be there, is a bit like you go through your partner's phone, you find out they're having an affair, you say, oh, my God, I've seen your text messages, and they reply, not sorry, oh, dear, but what were you doing looking in my phone? I think the actual means by which it was found is fairly incidental. I don't really care about that. What I care about
What
is the
if there are
information
other cameras?
they
What if
found.
they're pointing at a desk full of secrets?
Well, let everyone behave properly then.
That obviously someone's very good at leaving state secrets at a bus stop. So how secure are they within the building?
I mean, I would say a lot of your viewers now will be in workplaces where they're on camera all the time. They'll work in supermarkets, they'll work in factories, on the conveyor belts. I'm not saying they would, to make sure they don't thieve anything, and others. So I actually am in total favour of cameras in all their offices. I don't think there should be audio. I don't think there should be the sound. I realise that could be compromising if you've got important defence contracts. But why shouldn't we have cameras in all that? And if that keeps them a little bit honest, and if that means they don't get on the champagne or they don't indulge in ladies and gentlemen or gentlemen and gentlemen or ladies and ladies, what is the problem with any of that? I'm absolutely in favour of it.
So do you think that camera was there and he knew about it? And he just thought, where does that go?
You can clearly see it in photographs taken in 2019 where he started. You can see the camera. Anyone looking at the picture can see the camera.
I think Amour.
So what did he think? Did he just think, well, no one's going to show this. This will be a breach of some sort of protocol. No one's going to... These secrets, anything that happens in here is a complete...
Well, what's interesting is what we appear to have learnt is it's a copy of the video. So the video exists for 30 days. It has now been wiped. So someone actually copied it. He, she or they have actually copied it and then moved it onto the newspaper. I can only imagine, his heart took over his head. He wasn't
Was it his heart?
Well, his heart, yes.
His heart? Really? Is that the bit of the anatomy?
I know the time of day we're on. His heart took over his head, and we all know what happened next. That's what I would say.
Let's talk about Boris then, because he's come under fire as well, because people are saying that he should have fired him, quite frankly, that it was too little, too late, and that he should have made a stand against
I must say I'm astounded by this, absolutely astounded by this, because you would have thought that the Dominic Cummings lesson was loud and clear, and this is the lesson. If Boris needs to watch and find out, let him listen to what I'm saying here, because this is the lesson. You do not get to dictate when a line is drawn under something, and you do not get to dictate when people must or should stop talking about something. We're people. We get to talk about whatever we want.
So why did he then? Why didn't he do it?
It's interesting. I mean, loyalty is a virtue, and I'm all for loyalty. If you look back when he was Mayor of London, he had a number of deputy mayors who got caught up in various issues. One had a very unfortunate background, one again. He never actually fired any of them. And I did phone-ins with this bloke for 6 years when he was Mayor of London. So you know him. Yep. He's not a confrontational guy. He doesn't like confrontation. He doesn't welcome confrontation. He leaves it for the person to go. On this one, I think he got it wrong. I think he should have phoned the bloke up. How many times, Philip, Holly, have we talked about the impact of Dominic Cummings? Yes. How it very nearly lost the folk out there. Very, very... Yeah. And this had to be the one where he said, look, I'm terribly sorry. This is just, how can we possibly be the executive that tells everybody you can't go to funerals, you can't go to your daughter's, you can't sing at your daughter's wedding, you can't go to school sports day. It cannot exist.
You can't be with your wife while she gives birth. You can't watch your child being born. You can't, but I can. That's what stinks. It stinks. It sucks. You can't do that. You cannot dictate to people how their lives will be affected. People who waved goodbye to those they loved as they went into an ambulance and never saw them again. I know. And never saw them again. And then he behaves. It is appalling. And really,
bearing in mind, just the other side of this. At that point, it wasn't the law. At that point, it was just guidance. And how many people watching and judging could say, I might have just twisted the guidance slightly.
But 2 weeks prior to that, the Queen sat alone at the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh, observing every possible restriction, requirement, recommendation, whatever. You're right, it's not the law. So she was able to do that 2 weeks without any of her sons.
But that was in public. That was in public. Her Majesty may very well have gone off camera
An office is public.
and hugged somebody.
An office is not your bedroom. It's not at home. It's not your boudoir. It's an office, and he's Secretary of State for Health. How much more public do you need to be?
Yeah.
It's in the office. But I think the tin ear of the Prime Minister, not to have heard how devastated people were about Dominic Cummings, not to hear the betrayal in people's voices. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I haven't cuddled my mother. I was sitting there watching someone. I can't even... You know, did you see that amazing programme with Sharon Horgan Together, where she talked about watching her mother dying on FaceTime, for God's sake, and that people have done that.
But how does Boris sack someone if he's had affairs himself?
But it wasn't about the affairs, it was about the social distancing. On those grounds, he should have sacked it.
I don't think it was actually. I mean, thank God it wasn't about... I'm not... I know that children are innocent victims, but I don't think we live in the 50s or the 60s now. This was someone who is setting out guidance, which clearly he's not bound to, and there is the question of her employment. I'm not saying anything was wrong, but we need to know the terms by which she gained employment. And, of course, Boris's fear is if he throws one bloodied carcass out to the wolves, then he'll have to throw the next one. And he doesn't like ruling London, when you and I both knew him well, and he clearly doesn't like ruling the country in that fashion.
So are the rules sort of shot to pieces now here? You see that there's amid the news that Matt Hancock broke his own social distancing rules. More than 50 people have been arrested after police shut down an illegal rave attended by thousands this weekend. Police were called to a large unlicensed music event in the fields of a nearby town of Stenning in West Sussex, very near to where I grew up, during the early hours of Sunday. So this is footage from there. I mean, what rules are we sort of keeping upheld here?
Well, I think people are divided really in two on this one. There are people who say, oh, come on, we've all broken the rules to some extent. Who hasn't? We've relaxed it a little bit. We've had more than 6 people in the house. We've had 8, we've had 10, we've done this, we've done that. And then there are the people who really haven't. They really have adhered to every single syllable of the letter of the law. They really haven't broken a thing, and their lives have been hideously attenuated as a result of not breaking anything. And they are, rightly infuriated.
You mentioned this last week. You said, do you remember we talked about the fact that people are watching the football every afternoon and every night on the telly, and if they're in Budapest, there's 60 or 70,000 people all hugging each other. You come to Wembley, there's going to be, I think, 20,000, 25,000. You can't keep on doing this when, as Vanessa rightly says, people can't hug their parents and you can't go to folks' funerals. The line is starting to go.
Yeah. And do you think that the new Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, could come in and say... and I said this earlier on, but you disagreed, but could come flying in on his white Charger, ingratiate himself enormously by saying, right, do you know what, I think the 19th of July, I'm going to bring that forward a couple of weeks. And we all think, oh, my God.
I think that would be tremendous. I don't get the sense yet. I don't think we're going to hear anything as regards next Monday. What you have got, though, is someone who is on record as saying, and he's right, lockdowns don't beat viruses. Lockdowns in themselves don't beat viruses. You will have someone, whereas Mr Hancock was very much a dove. You've got far more of a hawk now who will be pushing, because we all know if people don't respect a law or a restriction, there's no point having the damn thing.
And if he does, doing it at exactly the right moment when patience is worn thin and people will be behind
And if you're
him.
setting the laws and the guidance, make sure you stick to them yourself.
Absolutely.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. See you again.